Imagine you're 19 years old. You have everything. A ship you're about to captain, a woman you're about to marry, a future that's wide open. And then, in a single night, 3 men who smile at your face decide to bury you alive. Not metaphorically, literally. In a dungeon, cut off from the world, left to rot. Now, imagine what you'd do if you got out. That's the Count of Monte Cristo. And today, we're breaking down why it's not just the greatest revenge story ever written, but what it reveals about something very dark inside of all of us. So, here's where we are. It's 1815, Marseille, France. Edmond Dantès is a sailor, young, talented, genuinely a good guy, and he's about to be named captain of his ship at 19 years old, which is exactly the problem. Because 3 people in his life cannot stand to watch him succeed. First, we have Ferdinand Mondego. He's Edmond's so-called friend, and he's also deeply and pathetically in love with Edmond's fiancée, Mercedes. Ferdinand doesn't want to win her over. He just wants Edmond gone. Second, we have Danglars, a fellow sailor who wanted the captaincy that Edmond just got. He's not dangerous because he's powerful. He's dangerous because he's petty. And petty people with a grudge are the most dangerous kind. And third and final is Villefort, a prosecutor, the one who should protect the innocent. He knows Edmond's innocent. He figures it out in the room. But Edmond is carrying a letter that could destroy Villefort's own career, so he makes a choice. He signs the order anyway. That's your betrayal. Not 1 enemy, 3. Each one motivated by something different. Jealousy, ambition, self-preservation. And together, they send an innocent 19-year-old off to Chateau d'If, a prison island with no trial, no appeal, no hope. Now, here's where most revenge stories skip ahead. They cut to the training montage. The hero gets strong, gets smart, gets ready. But Dumas doesn't skip this part, and that's what makes Monte Cristo different. Edmond doesn't come out of prison stronger right away. First, he breaks. He stops eating. He plans to starve himself to death. He's been betrayed by people he trusted, abandoned by the justice system, forgotten by the world. The psychological damage of that, of knowing you're innocent and no one cares, that's not something you just shake off. What saves him, literally, is a scratching sound in the wall. It's an old priest named Abbe Faria. He's digging an escape tunnel that went the wrong direction. He ended up in Edmond's cell by accident. But what happens between these 2 men over the next several years is one of the most quietly powerful things in the whole novel. Faria teaches him. He teaches him everything. Languages, history, science, law, mathematics, philosophy. He treats Edmond not as a prisoner, but as a mind worth developing. And before he dies, he tells Edmond about a treasure hidden on a small island called Monte Cristo. That treasure doesn't just give Edmond money, it gives him something that grief had taken away. And that was a reason to live. Now, when Edmond escapes, and the escape itself is one of the most coldly brilliant moments in the book. I'll let you read that part yourself, but he finds the treasure. And now he has resources that most people couldn't imagine. But here's what's fascinating about what he does next. He doesn't rush. He spends years building his cover. He becomes the Count of Monte Cristo, a mysterious, wealthy nobleman from an island no one can verify. He builds relationships, he studies his targets, he maps their weaknesses before he ever makes a move. Think about what that requires psychologically. This is a man who's been wronged at 19 years old. He carries that injustice for over a decade, and instead of exploding, he engineers. That level of patience isn't just discipline, that's transformation. Edmond Dantès goes into that prison, but someone else entirely comes out. Okay, now, this is the part you came for. Each betrayer gets something different, and that's intentional. Edmond doesn't apply the same punishment to everyone. He tailors it. He studies what each person values most, and he takes that specific thing away. Ferdinand Mondego? The jealous friend who wanted Mercedes? Well, Ferdinand married her. He became a count, a war hero, a respected man. He built his entire identity on status and the woman he stole. So, Edmond doesn't fight him. He exposes him. He surfaces evidence of a war crime, a real betrayal Ferdinand committed years earlier, and watches as the trial strips away his title, his reputation, and finally, Mercedes herself, who leaves him when she learns of this truth. Ferdinand loses everything he valued, and then he loses his life by his own hand. He wasn't killed by Edmond, he was killed by the weight of his own choices, finally brought to life. One down, two to go. Next, we have Danglars, the petty, ambitious one. He becomes a banker, he becomes obscenely wealthy. Edmond destroys him financially, slowly, methodically. He manipulates markets, intercepts transactions, engineers this whole collapse. Danglars watches his fortune disappear, and he can't figure out why or how. And in the end, Edmond has him kidnapped and held in a cave, forced to pay absurd sums for basic food until he's nearly bankrupt and broken. And then Edmond lets him go, alive, penniless, with just enough money to survive because dying would be easier than living with what he lost. The last one's Villefort, the prosecutor, the one who knew. His is the most devastating of all, and honestly the most uncomfortable to read, because Edmond's revenge on Villefort doesn't just target Villefort, it unravels his entire family. Secrets emerge, a poisoner in the household, a buried illegitimate child that resurfaces. The walls of Villefort's respectable life just collapse inward. Villefort ends up mad, broken, standing over graves of people he loved, and his sanity gone. Villefort survives, which is actually the punishment. So now, here's the question the whole book is really asking. Does it work? Does Edmond feel better? And the honest answer Dumas gives us is, well, it's complicated. There's a moment near the end where Edmond watches the consequences of his plan unfold and feels something he didn't expect. Not triumph, not satisfaction, but doubt. He starts to wonder if he went too far. If the collateral damage, the innocent people caught in the machinery of his revenge, was justified. He wonders if he's still the good man who went into that prison, or if the Count of Monte Cristo is someone Edmond Dantès wouldn't recognize. And this is why the book has survived 180 years, because it understands something about human nature that most revenge fantasies don't want to admit. And that's that we love the idea of revenge. We're fascinated by it. We root for it. Studies in behavioral psychology consistently show that watching justice delivered, especially delayed, proportional justice, activates the same reward centers in the brain as receiving something we want for ourselves. It feels good. It feels right. The people who actually pursue it, who dedicate years of their life to it, they often describe arriving at the destination and finding it empty. Because the injury that started it all doesn't disappear when the other person suffers, it just sits there, waiting. What Dumas is telling us is that Edmond's real prison wasn't the Chateau d'If, it was the plan itself. The thing that kept him alive also kept him locked. And the moment the revenge was complete, he had to figure out for the first time in 13 years who he was without it. It's not just great literature. That's one of the most honest things ever written about what grief and injustice actually do to a person. If you want to go deeper on this, the actual novel's in public domain, completely free and worth every page. I'll link it in the description. Now, next time we get together, we're looking at a revenge story where the victim goes so far past justice that we become the ones who are uncomfortable, and we still can't look away. If this kind of breakdown is what you're here for, subscribe because we're just getting started. And remember, the best stories don't just entertain you, they show you something true about yourself. I'm Bobby Garrison, and this is Dark Margins. I'll see you in the next chapter.